Welcome to the Ashraf Garda show. Ahmed Tilly, welcome to Marketing Wars on the Ashraf Garda show. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Ashraf. Thanks for having me.
Good. Now, often I would introduce you as agency boss, and I would throw in the name of the agency. I really don't know what to call you right now, so you better tell me.
I'm not quite sure myself. I've been calling myself a creative consultant, creative advisor. And I think those probably are two of the more appropriate titles for me right now, if we have to have one.
Okay, so but perhaps then it necessary of necessity allows me to segue into what happened to you. I mean, you've been an agency man, I know, for a good decade, maybe even longer. What's happened and certain decisions have been made? Give us an insight into that.
Okay, yeah, it's been 25 years that I've been in the game. I think I got to a point, I think maybe it's just a point of maturity, if you want to call it that. Got to a point where I just felt like I was not getting as inspired and as enthused by in agency life as I used to. I think it's a combination of factors. I don't think it was any particular agency, and not to say face, it wasn't that. I think the industry has also changed quite a bit, and so have I over the years. And I felt like I needed some autonomy and try to do something on my own, you know. And that kind of spurred me on to go. If ever there was a time for me to do this, it's now, which turned out to be quite a difficult time to have done it, actually.
All right, so let's get this right. So you're this creative consultant. You're a man up for hire, right?
Yeah.
By who? I mean, who are you targeting to use your services?
So interestingly, in the beginning, my aim was I was hoping that I'd get clients to hire me, and I think the reason for that was not to start another agency. I don't want to do that. I think the reason for that was I feel like there's a big gap between agency and clients, and I feel that gap needs to be brought closer together. The minute there's a relationship between an agency and a client, for some reason, that gap seems to broaden instead of come closer. And obviously, there are examples of those that have a very close relationship. So, what I wanted to do was to have an ear with the client, with sort of the creative expertise and experience that I've got from agency life, and to bring some of that sort of problem solving into the client side, to assist either with agencies or the clients for some of the problems that they have that they need solved. That was the theory of it anyway.
Okay, do I say but what happens?
There's a but. I think what I also enjoyed often was a meeting with agencies, other agencies that were interested in my learnings. And obviously, when you're tied to an agency as an employee of an agency or to be a partner in a certain agency, it limits you in terms of being able to share your knowledge or experience or assist other agencies. This gave me the freedom to be able to, the second part of my sort of target market, if you want to call it that, are other agencies. And I've got, I'm doing some work for smaller agencies, bigger agencies, on a consistent basis, and that's been really good for me. It's been really enjoyable for me. They've looked to me to kind of help in terms of so many different things, creative cultures, help with creative people, some of the creative directors, processes, some of the models that I've intuitively used in my career that I've now formalized a little more. But really, my experience inside an agency and inside agencies that have done pretty well creatively, I'm now using that knowledge and sharing it with other agencies and getting paid for it.
Okay. So I mean, it's good that they're using it, good that they're paying you for it, but does it surprise you that larger agencies would actually even need someone like yourself in the first place? I mean, what does that say about the whole, agency and client relationship historically?
So I must qualify that when I say larger agencies, I'm not talking about your classic top 5 agencies in terms of billings. Those agencies haven't given me a call, and I can understand why. It kind of answers your question. I think there's enough expertise on a local level and internationally for them to have to tap into anyone that would do that. Mine goes down to slightly smaller agencies and medium-sized agencies that that can identify areas of growth within that agency, within the agency, and within the quality of the work that they're doing, with the kind of processes that they're applying. All of it around creative culture, around creative output. And so, yeah, they've called me up with some really interesting people, and I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
What for you then are your? I mean, you've had this as you said, 2 decade plus track record. But what for you then are the absolute core competencies that you now bring into this new space that would make you such a willing partner in any sort of stakeholder relationship?
I think, you know, I always maintained that I've done well in my career making ads and campaigns, but I've never believed that I was the best at that. I've always surrounded myself with people who were way better than me at writing, at coming up with ideas, at making ads. I think the thing I've learned about myself is that one of the things I seem to have as an advantage is getting better out of people, getting the best out of creative people, understanding the creative process, understanding client business problems. I always felt like I was trapped somewhere between a creative person and a strategist. You know, I've had creative training and I've done my career in creative. I've never been formally trained in strategy, but I found that my natural inclination towards comstrat and creative is a great meeting of two minds. And that's one of my core competencies. So that's why I leave it quite open when I go agencies on the one hand, where the other thing that I've done really well with is creative cultures in agencies like Black River FC, at FCB, and other agencies that I've been at. But at the same time, the thing that I've offered my clients always via an agency has been trying to solve problems in ways that businesses themselves can't see it. And I've got, you know, the wood from the trees. I've got that ability to be able to look at a business problem and find some kind of odd creative solution that often ends up in advertising and sometimes not. So yeah, this my expertise are quite broad within creative, but the thing that I enjoy most and I feel that I'm best at is, if you want to call it, creative strategy and creative cultures. That seems to be my thing.
Do you see this as the first step to almost creating a whole new manual in terms of problem solving, you know, in that relationship between client and agency?
Not so much a manual, but certainly a different way of doing things. I think, okay, we're talking about COVID a bit earlier before we started this phone call, and I think the world's at a place right now, unprecedented in terms of anything that used to be a certain way. You know, we now have permission. I think that's the blessing in disguise. We now have the permission to reinvent everything. So I think that the timing is actually, interestingly, a great time to try a different way of doing things. I think that the need has always been there, but we've always tried to work within the confines of the template, which is, there's a company, it has a marketing department, there's an ad agency, they do ads, now there's digital, now there's other things, and you'll stick in your boxes and try and work within those confines. And I think that needs to be rewritten. I'm not so sure it's a new model. I think it's the thing that everyone intuitively wants to do. They're business people who really want a creative brain to help solve a problem, collaborate in solving a problem. But then there's the dynamics of an agency and the client that always interferes with that problem. And I'm trying to loosen that up because I think clients want it, they need it. They want to have someone at the table that they see as a partner, that they don't see as someone on the other side, that can apply a different kind of thinking to the same problem without the politics of agency versus client. And I think this is a great opportunity for that, because things have to work faster. They have to move like quicker, and it has to be a little more pointed and a little more directed. There isn't time for big budgets that solve big problems over a long period of time. So if ever there was a time to reinvent, not the manual so much, but the how to get to the same result in a faster way, in a more unconventional way, now's the time. And I feel like perhaps there's an opportunity there. It's not a South African thing. There isn't a massive market for it. If you look internationally, they have creative directors that sit on the client side, and then they have agencies. So I feel like there's a lot that can be rewritten, and I haven't got the manual yet, but I'm finding my way, a new way, and that's been really exciting. I think that's been really interesting for me.
Would you say then, talking about the economic impact of COVID, right? Would you say then it's the worst time for you to effectively become this freelancer, or in fact, is it the best time?
So when I resigned from FCB, I had a couple of irons in the fire, and interestingly, I left FCB's buildings on the 26th or 27th of March.
Wow.
And the lockdown happened very shortly after. They may have been a day or two later, and then I got phone calls from those irons in the fire saying, "Listen, we can't do anything right now." So I sat in my backyard under my gazebo for about a month and a half, going, I don't know how to make any living right now. So it felt like it was the worst possible time to do it. in hindsight,
But having said that, you still need to market yourself, right? So you made the point about hoping to attract the client side to do business with you as well as the agencies. How then do you go about marketing yourself? Do you actively, cold call? In this can maybe cold call be the wrong word because I think you'd know them. But how do you actively do just that?
So, I mean, I haven't done that because I wasn't quite sure what exactly it was I was offering out there because it's so broad. What I have done is a bit old school. I stepped into my network of people that I do know. The two clients or agencies that I'm doing work for are people that I respect in the industry, that I've had interactions with those two agencies before, and I've really enjoyed those individuals that are at the helm of this. So I've got a great respect for them. So I've literally said, this is the way to approach it, is to start working for these people and see how I can assist to make their businesses better as much as I possibly can. And I'm hoping that that becomes the word of mouth until it forms itself into something a little more concrete. I think I love the fact that it doesn't have to be a business card that actually is quite specific. So I've utilized in terms of marketing myself. I'm trying to use the people I'm working for as my case studies, and hope to improve whatever improvement they need, so that I can actually take that to the next person. And there is a word of mouth thing that goes around, and then to tap into my network, a broader network as things progress. And then to market myself, yeah, I think social media is an area that I need to start doing more of the marketing of the actual service that I offer. And I must be honest with you, I'm not going to sit here and claim that I've worked it all out. I'm waiting to shape this thing to understand exactly what I'm best at before I put the product. It's like any product. You've got to develop the product first, make sure that it's actually the best form before you put it out and make any promises or claims. And that's the process I'm in at the moment.
All right, and those two agencies you work with, I mean, is that public knowledge? Can you tell us, or not?
No, I can tell you. So I'm doing some work for Boomtown in PE, a really great bunch of people. I've done some talks with him a couple of years ago, and then had a relationship with a guy called Andrew McKenzie and Glenn. And so I started discussions with them. They've been amazing. They've got such a great, what I love about them is they seem to be hidden in Port Elizabeth, but they've got such a great personality and culture as an organization. And I'm trying to, make them the best they can be by influencing as much of the people that I can there. And then the other one is obviously Wayne Naidu from Duke. I've got a relationship with Wayne, and I work really well with him, and I'm getting stuck into his business. And I mean, interestingly, the way I treat those two businesses is as though they're my own. And partnering with Wayne has been also amazing to kind of partner with the Duke Group, which goes beyond Duke Advertising. It's got Mark One, it's got a positive dialogue, it's got a couple of subsidiaries underneath it. And it's again very exciting. Both agencies share a similar kind of attitude that I do, which is quite enthusiastic, full of energy and full of passion, and want to do things. They're not complacent, and I love that.
It's interesting you mentioned, Wayne, of course, being being the chairperson of the ACA. We're not going to talk about the ACA, but picking up on that example, you then would very likely have an insight of a whole series of different agency problems and how to solve them by moving one to another. But therein, does that not also pose another problem, which is to what extent will all these agencies want to use you if you're literally on this freelance basis moving on one to another?
I think a lot of it's based on faith and trust, to be honest with you. I don't get involved per se with their clients in any shape or form at this point. That may mutate as things go on. What I am focusing on is, creative processes. Some of the models that I apply, that it's not the model that's unique. It's how you apply the model that starts making your product unique. Creative cultures in terms of getting creative people to collaborate more in processes, how to kind of, when I left FCB, we did a thing where we broke the conventional team of an art director and a writer because the world's changed. And so learnings like that they're not exclusive. I don't believe they're exclusive to an agency. They're actually an industry that requires a similar change. The product that comes from those agencies is going to be dependent on the people that they have there, the attitudes they have there, and the way those agencies are run. So I don't think there's much conflict. I do get involved in the work because that's the expression of what I do comes out in the end product, in the output of it. But so far there hasn't been any problems. I've been open with both agencies, and I try and offer the things that they need that I think most agencies need. I think I haven't even touched on the client side, which is the more exciting part of it actually, because clients to sit with someone who's got insight into the agency to be able to possibly develop a better brief or to be able to solve a problem that the agency hasn't been able to solve perhaps. It's not interfering in the agency's business at all, but it certainly gives.
Okay. Which is the client or the brand that you absolutely love to work with? There's a pitch.
Marketing fan of Nike, obviously it'll be on the top of my list. To be able to get involved in something like that. But really, I'll tell you what, and this is the truth about my career from the time I started. The brands that I really enjoy are the ones who acknowledge that they're not there yet. And I like the brands that have big problems. I like the brands that are the underdogs. And Nike is not that. Nike is not an underdog by any means. So what actually turns me on is to go, as a brand, whatever brand it is, we have a specific problem and we can't solve it. And the minute you tell me that, that gets me really excited. To see brands turn themselves around is one of the most exciting things. And I've had years of experience in doing that in different capacities, as a writer, as a creative director, as an agency co-founder and owner. Those are the brands that I made a name for myself. The brands made a name for themselves, and those are the brands that I get most excited by.
Is there one that comes to mind? A brand that you worked on that you were able to turn around that you can share publicly?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say exclusively, but at Black River FC, we made a case study for ourselves as an agency in doing that. So if we take launching Tata Motors, firstly, is one of the brands that came in as an Indian brand that no one knew. There was very little sort of confidence around the brand. We launched that brand into the country, did really well. Virgin Money that came into South Africa for the first time when Richard Branson launched his credit card. We launched that. Our launch day crashed their websites. That was a great case study. Mini Cooper, when they came to us with a really specific problem in 2007, and they said that the vehicle or the brand was only seen favorably by, and these were their words, white women, and they needed to change the market to young, cool black guys. That was at that time a problem that felt impossible to solve, which we definitely did change. First for Women's another one, classic example of a brand that was, really insignificant at the time that we had taken it on to become a complete household name. It's become one of the biggest brands in the Telesure group. Nando's that had gone through obscurity for a while. When we started in 2005, we made them the social commentators that they are now. So, that was a turnaround of a brand that was perceived to be quite high profile at that point, was not. And yeah, so I've had a lot.
Okay. Okay, well, absolutely. All right, so we're going to wrap up with this. You made the point about social media. Now, if there's one criticism that I would have of Ahmed Tilly in the past, is that Ahmed Tilly didn't really have a very solid social media platform or profile. I've been pleasantly surprised over the last 2 or 3 months, whether you're talking about issues of transformation, maybe specifically so more than anything else, and other things, that the profile both on Instagram and definitely on Twitter has been raised considerably, okay? So that would be, even as you've already said, you're not too sure how you're going to do it, that's been very deliberate, I take it, right?
Like it felt uncomfortable for me. It felt a little braggy in a way, but I've also learned that it's a great opportunity to kind of put your opinion forward, and not just your opinion. I've also come to realize, I think this has been the kind of rebirth of myself, in a sense, is that you've come to realize that you do actually have a voice that is bigger than you may think it is, and the influence that voice has. So when matters like Black Lives Matters come in and transformation in our industry and racism in our industry, I thought it was important for me to publicly make my stance known because of the voice that I have in the industry. You know, you look back and you go, oh, shit, actually, I've been here for 20 years and I've got a bit of a profile. So it was responsible for me to do that. Number one. Number two, I did want to voice it to hopefully try and make some kind of change, whatever that change is. And that's why I've utilized the platforms a little more, which is leading into the whole sort of mentorship thing that I'm starting to do. It's very unfamiliar for me, but I'm starting to go there because of the realization that there are a whole lot of people who do look up to me, and there are people who need my assistance. And I think that's you do the Champion South Africa thing. I think that's our role in any industry, is to be able to share, because we're not going to move forward as a nation if we're keeping these treasures to ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, so that's a natural segue onto the next thing, which is, and I'm going to use an advertising name, AAA, because we all know about AAA if you know marketing. So AAA is in Ask Ahmed Anything. It's a wonderful catch, a line, I must tell you. So yes, I mean, I've observed then, one thing you're talking about transformation, which is great, but you can't just talk about transformation. You also need to market yourself, right? And the Ask Ahmed Anything suggests it's mentorship, but it's certainly going to put you very much in the spotlight. So what is the plan there?
So it's more innocent than you think. I mean, maybe it's a clever way of marketing myself as a consultant, but I must be honest, really that comes from a place where I was doing these things with the Luries, co-hosting with Donovan Goliath on Instagram, and we had Kayat Lango on, and we were talking about mentorship, and a penny dropped for me like 2 weeks ago. And it just went to a point where it just went like, there's Kayat Lango, there's Donovan Goliath in advertising, myself, and there's so many other people that I know. And I just felt like the area of expertise, advertising and communications, that's been my thing, right? That's been what I know and I've known so well. So much of that information sits with me. All I have to do is use the public platforms really to invite young people, because this mentorship thing, I love mentoring people, not in the formal sense. I've always had an open door policy at every company that I've worked for. I've always leveled it so that people feel comfortable to ask me anything. And so I just want to take that into a virtual space. And how amazing is it that you can reach such wide audiences? I had a former colleague from the States asking me, to do it at a time that's good for Eastern time in the States. And I just went like, there are so many young people around the world, but specifically in this country, tied to the whole transformation thing as well, with a focus on young black talent, is to go, so many of those young people just have hundreds of questions and no one to ask. And here I am dying to talk, and anyone who listened to me about the stuff that I know, and just to formalize that, I think can offer a mentorship in a very different way. And I think that there's such a hunger for that mentorship. And I'm inviting everyone, all my colleagues that I've grown up with, to do the same. I'll obviously host a lot of them on my so-called show, but I invite all of them to do the same on the individual platforms, because if 10 of us do that and reach 100 people each, we've made a difference.
Well, I'll tell you what, I agree. And I mean, now that I talk to you, certainly from my vantage point is with Champion South Africa, I may well consider doing that, because specifically the platform you're using is Instagram, an Instagram live, which I think is particularly receptive to these quick live chats that you obviously tested and you know that it's working, right? So yeah, you may well just have an adherent in myself. But so what then is the actual plan? So Ask Ahmed Anything, or AAA, and I've loved the teasing about your logos. I've been following that. How do you see this playing out?
It's going to be very interesting. I've planned next week. Wednesday is the first one at 6 o'clock. I'm going to see if anyone shows up. It's like it's a bit nerve-wracking, but yeah, it's going to be an open platform. The format's going to be, I'll introduce myself on the show, and then I'll literally throw the floor open to people. On Instagram, you can request to come on live with someone. I'm thinking of doing that. I think it's quite nice to be able to have someone to look at so everyone else can. And I start shooting questions at me. If I can't answer them, I'll get back to people. I'll answer what I can. And the most important thing is, if you've got 30, 50 people that are tuning in, one question answers 49 other people's, they often have the same question. So that's the original format. I think I will get into a format where I will have somebody on the show with me. I'll also try and read the panel, read the audience to say there's a focus on, let's say, fine art, for example, then I'll try and lean it towards that. But my expertise is in marketing and advertising, and there's a whole lot of people who are really interested in that. I'm going to open that floor for them to ask whatever questions. And often they're the questions people feel are quite silly and quite insignificant, but they actually can limit someone from growing, so moving forward. So it will be an advice thing in a way, maybe a little Dr. Ruth kind of thing instead of sex advertising, and I'll be able to help whatever I can. But what I can't help, I'll be very happy to redirect to someone who I do know, or be able to connect people that way. But literally to be able to answer questions. I've been asked questions about advertising. You can imagine almost on a daily basis on different forms in social media. Why not share the answer with
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, from our side, Champion South Africa, we love that sort of intervention, because that's what you've just done, or a champion intervention. And feel free to tag us on all your promos, and I will make sure that gets reposted. So there you are. You've got one person who's going to absolutely support you. But having said that, I mean, I saw yesterday or the day before, in fact, two names that I respect highly on Twitter, absolutely glowing in their praise for yourself. So that's the Chaukin from DNA Brand Architects, and Veli Ngubani from Avatar. Now, I mean, that leads to exactly what you made, the point you made earlier on, right? You have a stellar reputation in your industry, right? And it's something that you need to leverage off in a far bigger way, perhaps, or a different way than what you've done before.
I guess I do. I've got a lot of thinking to do, and be a bit more deliberate in my attempt at marketing myself and putting myself out there. I have been doing some thinking. I haven't tapped into my network. We all have the same. I certainly have this problem of like not wanting to ask people for help, and so the sort of independence, if you want to call it that, or I don't know what it is, shyness, shame, whatever it is, imposter syndrome. I've got to figure out a different way to get it out there. I'm also quite cautious to not overpromise anything, and so I'm definitely using the 2 months that I've had to be able to understand exactly what I do best. And then I think once I know what I do best and what I've been most helpful at, is to tap into that and be more deliberate about putting myself out there in the marketplace. And yeah, I've got some lessons to do that. And so I need to get onto someone's mentorship program and ask them how to do that. I must be honest, to find out how to do it.
So I like the name, Ask Ahmed anything. Here's the last one I'm going to ask you right now, because I know you're this big Manchester United fan, like myself. So how do we get to win the league when the guys on top are your arch enemies? And in fact, they are so impressive. You have to say, wow. Answer.
So you have to start off first by congratulating them for playing such amazing football. Like, it hasn't been this year; it's been last year as well. And I think everyone wants to be a winner. We're winning outfit. We've got it in our blood, and we'll always want to win some more. I think Solskjaer's got something going. So I'm looking forward to next season to rival Liverpool, because it's not going to be an easy competitor to beat. But we've got it in us. We've done it before.
Okay, and bring it back home from a Champion South Africa perspective. What's the one thing we as a country must get right to become a champion nation?
I've got a very simple answer to this thing. It's the same thing I say in all my agencies that I work with and all the people I work with. You have to have each other's backs. I think that the world's changed to such a point where everyone is striving for individual success. And no one succeeds that way. We live in South Africa. We are taught the concept of Ubuntu, of a whole village to raise a child. That's exactly the same way companies win, by having each other's backs. And that's how we win as individuals, is when we start winning as a team. So as South Africans, I think that's what we need to do. We need to call each other out on all the things that are wrong with ourselves and supporting each other by being better. I mean, if you look in South Africa, the support that women require, that they need to move ahead in a world that's so against them, that requires all of us to have each other's backs, to have their backs, for them to have our backs, from a race point of view, from every aspect, all the way from the bottom, all the way up to the government, state versus the people versus the state. We all have to be working as a team. So if we have each other's backs, business, social, and politics, we're unstoppable.
Well, there you are. It's what we call a Champions South Africa lobby for one. I'm certainly happy to lobby for Ahmed Tilly. Ahmed, best wishes with your consulting and also for Ask Ahmed Anything. I think it's a wonderful project. I look forward to probably logging in next week, Wednesday. Absolutely. Thanks for your time.